Hi and welcome to the Malat Cookery channel. So it is absolutely freezing today. It's the middle of winter. What I want to make is a classic winter comfort food dish, which is fish pie. Now, I don't necessarily want to concentrate on the ingredients. There are a lot of regional differences with regard to what goes into something like a fish pie. What I'd like to concentrate on for this video is the structure, how to build something like a fish pie so it doesn't turn into what I call hospital food. And what I mean by that is that we don't turn something like the fish pie into a soft mush. As usual, a full list of ingredients will be given at the end of the video, so let's have a look at those ingredients now and anything else we're going to need for today. Right, so the ingredients for today, and this is enough to do a pie which will serve at least 4 to 6 people. 1.5 kilos of Maris Piper potatoes. These are going to be peeled and cubed into 2 centimetre cubes. Just choose a potato variety that is good for mashing. I've got 1 litre of semi-skimmed milk, some olive oil, 1 head of broccoli which has been cut into thin slices. We've got about 400 grams of fish. It doesn't matter which fish you use. Here I've got some smoked mackerel and some cod. Got around 400 grams of fish will do. I've got some mature cheddar cheese which I'm going to grate over the top of the mashed potato when the pie is finished. That's an optional extra, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. We've got 1 medium white onion which has been diced. I've got an extra about 5 tablespoons of semi-skimmed milk, that's going to be for the mash. A teaspoon of dried parsley, 30 grams of slightly salted butter, 1 small tin of sweet corn, 2 tablespoons of plain or all-purpose flour, and so we're going to be using some freshly ground black pepper and sea salt as the seasoning. So the first job we're going to do is to boil the potatoes. So I've had some salted water up to the boil, place the potatoes in there now. I'm going to get it back up to the boil as soon as I can, and then a rough guide is about 10 minutes for the potatoes to cook, but that's just a rough guide. So what I'm going to do when I get to about 7 or 8 minutes, I'm going to use a fork, find one of the larger pieces of potato and push the fork into the potato, and if it goes through with just a little bit of resistance but goes all the way through the potato, then we know that the potatoes are cooked, and take it off the heat as soon as possible. We're then going to drain the potato and leave them to one side while we cook the rest of the dish. Do not overcook the potatoes. If you do by accident, then don't add the milk at the mashing stage. So for the sauce, I've got a deep casserole pan, and in there is about 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Just bringing the pan up to temperature now on a medium heat. Then we're going to add in the butter. And just melt that butter in with the olive oil. So once the butter is melted, I'm going to add in the diced onion. Just turn that heat down slightly. So we're just going to gently fry these onions until they become soft. Take about 3 or 4 minutes. So once the onions have softened, I'm going to add in the flour and just cook that through for a couple of minutes. So once we've allowed that flour to cook through, you just want to add the milk, the litre of milk, just a little bit at a time, just to ensure we don't get any lumps in the sauce. So once we've added the milk, we now want to add the sweet corn. and also the parsley. So now we've added the sweet corn and the parsley. Next thing we want to do is to bring this up to a very gentle simmer. Make sure it doesn't catch around the edge. And we just want to simmer it gently, keeping an eye on it all the time, stirring occasionally, for about 10 to 15 minutes until it starts to reduce and thicken. So it's been about 15 minutes, the sauce has thickened nicely and started to reduce. I've turned the heat off, we don't want this to spoil. The next thing to do now is to actually build the fish pie. So before we actually build our fish pie, we're going to obviously have to do the mash. So these are the potatoes that we boiled earlier. Just going to season with some sea salt and some freshly ground black pepper. Now if you've cooked these correctly, we can also add in the milk. As I said before, if you've overcooked the potatoes for any reason, then don't add the milk, it'll just make them mushy. So the first stage for me is just to use a conventional masher and just get the potatoes roughly mashed, and then from this process I'm then going to use a sieve and actually push the mashed potato through the sieve just to get out any additional lumps, any small lumps in there. Of course you don't have to do the sieving process, I just think it just makes a far better mash when you do that. So I've mashed the potato using the potato masher. Now I'm going to use a spatula, and as I said, just push the mashed potato through the sieve just to get rid of any small lumps. Okay, so that's the mash passed through the sieve. It is a little bit of effort this, but for me it's well worth it. An alternative to pushing the mash through a sieve is to use an electric hand blender, which of course you can do. So before we put our sauce on into the fish pie, just need to taste it for seasoning. We're just going to add some sea salt and some pepper. Just mix that in. So the first thing we need to do is we line the base of the oven-proof dish with the broccoli. And it's also a good idea to place the dish on a baking tray so that if during the cooking process any of the sauce spills over the side, it doesn't ruin the oven and create a huge mess. Okay, so once we've lined the base of the dish with the broccoli, the next thing to do is add the fish. So I'm just taking a piece of fish, taking the skin off the back, and then just actually flaking the fish. Two reasons we're doing this, and not adding the reason we're not adding the fish to the sauce is one, once the pie is cooked, we'll still end up with pieces of fish and the fish won't completely disintegrate. But the second thing is, if we add the fish to the sauce and then we add the sauce into the pie dish, you've got no guarantee of actually where those pieces of fish are. So there is a potential that when we divide the finished pie up to serve, one person might get a lot more fish than the other one, whereas with this way we know exactly where the fish is and we can evenly distribute the fish throughout the pie. So once we've got all of the fish evenly distributed, and it looks like I'm going to get 2 pies out of this actually, so we'll just concentrate on the main one. So we now place in our sauce over the top. So although this sauce might seem quite thick now, there is unfortunately a lot of water added to fish in order to obviously increase the weight before you buy it and increase our profits. So the water that comes out of the fish will actually help to just thin this sauce out slightly. So that's why we make the sauce as thick as we do. Okay, so once we've got that sauce evenly distributed, the next thing to do is add the mash. So I'm just going to dot this all over the top of the pie and then work it in with the fork just to make it nice and presentable. So that's the top of the pie covered with the mashed potato. So you can do any design you like. I just like the top to be as rough as possible because all of this mashed potato on the top will become nice and crispy. The last thing to do, again, as I said, this is an optional extra, is just to place some grated mature cheddar cheese over the top, and again that will brown nicely in the oven, give a nice look, a texture and obviously a taste to the pie. So preheated an oven to 180 degrees centigrade, about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to cook these pies in the oven for about 40 minutes and then it should be done. So follow the steps in this video and you'll end up with an absolutely delicious fish pie that has a structure to it. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit that like button. Thank you very much for watching.